We're excited to have you here. Today's focus is the second part of our two-part series where we are refining our approach to implementing Zearn by differentiating to meet the needs of all of our learners. Quick overview of Zearn. Zearn is the nonprofit educational organization behind Zearn Math, which is the top-rated math learning platform used by 1 in 4 elementary students nationwide. Zearn Math supports teachers with research-backed curriculum and digital lessons proven to double the learning gains of a typical year of instruction. So everything that we do is driven by the belief that every kid can be a math kid. Introduce myself quickly. My name is Anna Daly, and I was an elementary school teacher for 7 years. So I've taught a little bit of all elementary grades from kindergarten to 6th grade in New York, Australia, and Maryland. I graduated from the University of Maryland, and I am a diehard Terp fan. So any college basketball or football lovers out there, go Terps. And as we're going to be diving into math today, I wanted to share that I've always loved math, loved it as a student. I loved teaching it, and I've taught Zearn myself before. So really excited to be sharing this program with you today and diving in and answering any questions you're having. Today's training is focused on building knowledge of the Zearn math insights and reports, refining strategies for leveraging those insights and reports in order to make aligned instructional decisions to accelerate student growth, and to have time so that we can craft a plan for continuous data use in our classrooms and school communities this year. I'll give you a moment to just read our objectives for our time together to yourself. All right, that's the end of 2 minutes. So feel free to unmute and share out, or if you're more comfortable, you can put it into the chat box. What are some of the things that you reflected on?
Wow, this is our event.
I was thinking that the kids have been using this program for a while, so they know the structure, they know the routines, which is great. And I think my challenge would be just not always having them finish the lesson a day. Like sometimes they just can't finish it in that 30-minute block.
Yeah, definitely. I hear that a lot.
I have the same. I teach 2nd grade, and we did have an intervention block, and so I had kids trying to go on it then, and while I pulled small groups, but that's just kind of been taken over by some reading stuff. So that's also a struggle for me. Sometimes I use it for homework instead of paper or pencil homework, but unfortunately the kids who need it the most are the kids who aren't doing it, or who take so long in school, or who get pulled out for a lot of other services, so they're not in the room when we're doing it. So getting it, I communicate with parents a lot about it, but it doesn't seem to get me very far.
And I think too that bookmarking lesson really on behalf of a lot of folks has really been helpful for that intervention time. But I think it's a pretty difficult thing to balance the use of Zearn with teaching Eureka at the same time, and how duplicative you need it to be. How much duplication is too much, or how much is not enough, or I think it's just trying to find that balance between teaching that paper pencil, to Brenda's point, and using Zearn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I find that it's so beneficial, because the kids who do use it, even if they're a little bit behind and they finally get going and they're on a good routine, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I heard this on Zearn, or I did this, and they feel more confident. But getting them at least 2nd grade to see that and understand what you put in, it's reap the benefit. I see huge growth from them when they use it. But yeah, trying to get them to do it is somewhat of a challenge. And I use bookmarks too, but now that our intervention time is gone, I stopped with that, because just getting them to do the regular lessons is a struggle. So I'm kind of holding off on that.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you guys are really implementing with fidelity, and you are seeing that it is successful for some students. And the fact that your 2nd graders are able to see that connection is so important, and exactly what we want them to see. I also see Jason in the chat saying that front-loading lessons with Zearn has helped some kids who struggle. And definitely using those Kickstart lessons and really getting them a little head start before you're teaching helps them build those connections and have a deeper foundational understanding as they're diving into new content. So Really excited to hear these things. Your struggles are all things we're going to be discussing today in different ways that we can support students. So as questions come up throughout, please let me know so we can get you as many answers today and we can be thought partners together throughout so you feel really confident leaving this session. So again, thank you so much for sharing out both what is going well and what's posing a challenge. Zearn provides tools in the form of generated reports and insights that are called foundational lesson guidance that will each enhance your ability to meaningfully drive growth for all learners in math in your classrooms. And it's going to help in our ability to maintain fidelity around the 4 instructional non-negotiables. So throughout today's session, our goal is to deepen our understanding of how to utilize Zearn math insights and reports so we can accelerate growth for every learner. Before we dive into our real first activity together, I want to hear how familiar you are with Zearn reports. So if you can just give me a number in the chat box, 1 being this is brand new, you're not really sure how to access anything. 3, you know what the reports are, but you want to know how to utilize them better. And 5 being you're an expert, you could help me lead this session. Fantastic. All 3's coming in. I love it. So diving in, implementing Zearn includes having students engage in those independent digital lessons, which you already know. Based on student completion of independent digital lessons, Zearn math class reports give teachers multiple opportunities to assess student learning with real-time data that's going to give visibility into student productivity and shows where they need that additional support. So to start today, we're going to engage in a scavenger hunt where we're looking really broadly at what the Zearn reports entail and how the reports can be used. Then we'll learn about foundational lesson guidance and how this can support our most struggling students. Next, we'll use this understanding of the reports and foundational lesson guidance to practice distilling information from the reports about student performance and growth in a case study. And then we'll close today by crafting a plan for continued data use in our own classrooms, as well as data-driven next steps to support the learners we are working with. So I'm sure you know already, but there are 9 different reports that Zearn users can leverage. 6 of these are teacher-facing and 3 are exclusively for administrators as they're supporting implementation at their school site. We're going to have the opportunity to look at each of these reports today and practice distilling information from them. However, if you are looking for more detail about each report specifically and how they can support teacher understanding of student performance, there are links to videos and articles on page 2 of your instructional handout for each report. So you can reference them anytime after the session. They'll be there for you to look at. The different reports that are generated by using Zearn are really integral in ensuring effective implementation. Each report can support a different aspect of implementation, and it can drive reflection for continuous improvement. So checking these reports weekly really ensures that you're leveraging insights to drive continuous growth for all of your learners. Once you have looked at your reports and you see the data that has been collected, the next step is really identifying what to do next to support learners that you're working with. So as you know, these Zearn digital lessons already have foundational content in every lesson. So students should be grappling with this content and productively struggling as they're engaging and progressing through the targeted lesson sequence, because students are going to engage in embedded remediation paths and on-ramps that are built directly into that lesson. However, if a student continues to struggle over time, Zearn provides insights in the form of foundational lesson guidance, which can be accessed from your assignment page. And this is accomplished through our new feature called bookmarking. I know that you guys are familiar with bookmarking, but we're going to watch a quick little video on it. We're only watching a portion about how we assign and determine what to give that student. But in your instructional handout, the full video is linked if you'd like to watch it in its entirety at a later time. As we're watching, I would love you to reflect on this question here. So how can you use this bookmarking tool to meet the needs of all of the learners in your class or school community? And in addition, since you've had a chance to start using this year, any questions that you're having around it or things that you're noticing as using, feel free to share those out afterwards as well.
also want to bookmark lessons, either using the Kickstart guidance or recommended foundational lessons based on where a student is struggling. You'll simply select the student or students you want to bookmark lessons for, just like we did for the core lesson, but select bookmark foundational lessons instead. So in terms of functionality and efficiency, you'll be able to bookmark lessons for one or multiple students, or even your whole class at once. You can also use this edit option here, as shown by the pencil on each student's line. Again, helping for functionality and efficiency. So let's use this edit option to bookmark lessons for Juan. Here I have the option to see Zearn's specific foundational lesson recommendations based on where Juan is currently working, which you can see here in the student's current topic. For Juan, that's Mission 3, Topic B in Grade 5. Or I can select a different topic here. If you know the exact lessons you want to bookmark, for example, if you're using the Kickstart guidance, you can also scroll down a bit and choose specific lesson. All that to say, there's a lot of flexibility here on what you choose to bookmark for students. So let's say Juan is struggling in the current topic of fractions, making like units pictorially. So I want to bookmark foundational content to support his current assignment. So we'll choose student's current topic to find Zearn's foundational lesson recommendation for that specific content. Here, there are 2 lessons from grade 4 listed that will serve as just-in-time bridge between the current 5th grade fraction work that Juan is struggling with and the potential unfinished learnings from 4th grade fractions. In other words, the foundational lessons will directly align to the content Juan is struggling with. I can also click additional support here to see an additional recommended lesson that would provide a more comprehensive review of 4th grade. This list of lessons matches the foundational lesson guidance that we provide on every mission page. We built this guidance based on a huge data set of now billions of lessons completed on Zearn to provide clear and precise recommendations on the critical foundational lessons from earlier grades that will support students with unfinished learnings so they can continue learning productively in their grade level work. So here you now have the option of how many foundational lessons you would like to assign, really depending on the depth of a student's unfinished learning. In this example, let's go ahead and choose the first lesson recommendation here, as well as one from the additional support. Once you've selected the lessons to bookmark, you simply scroll down and click Bookmark Lessons. This will show you a screen letting you know you successfully bookmarked 2 lessons for Juan. Then, back at the assignments page, if we scroll down to Juan's name, we can see his current assignment as well as the 2 lessons that have been bookmarked for him.
All right, we're going to pause there. Opening the floor now for any noticings you have, questions, reflections.
Can you say again, what's the specific difference between the additional support and the ones that it first shows in the bookmark list, and then the ones that show up under additional?
Yeah, the ones that are first shown are most directly aligned to the content that they're doing. The additional support are loosely aligned. So it will still support that learning, but not as much as those first 2. And so that's like, if you assign those first 2 and students are still showing signs of struggle, you could give them that extra support to fill in other gaps that might be there.
Now, as the kids finish a bookmarked lesson, do the bookmark tabs actually disappear as you go?
Yeah.
I can answer that. They do.
Yeah, that's what I've been telling everybody, but I've kind of been making it up. I just kind of assumed that they had been. So
yeah, so for students, they'll disappear from that page, so they don't have them. They can access all previous content they've done through their math library, so I can show you that quickly.
You can also go in and delete them later. Like today I had some kids that still had bookmarks, but now we've moved past that and they're doing okay. They kept skipping it. So I went in and deleted their bookmarks.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have full control over what they see and for how long. So in their math library, their bookmarked lessons would show up here. Once they complete them, they're removed from that list. But on all lessons, this is where students can access any lesson that they've completed. And so they can toggle back to previous grades. This is a grade 1, so it's just going to show you kindergarten. But if it was a 3rd or 4th grade class, it would go back to all of the previous grades that student has used Zearn for. And any lesson that has a check mark, they can click back into to re-engage with any portion of that lesson or complete the bonus. So it will disappear from their to-do list, but they still have access to it.
To the bookmark library, and then I clicked on a student just so I could see them. I didn't know if there's like another way to just see them, like you can see the curriculum. So I just chose a student, picked bookmark lessons, and then I selected the grade, the module, the topic, and hit whatever it was, continue or submit, and it gave me a list.
So 2, mission 4, and topic B. Absolutely. And that's the easiest way to find this information. The only way, if you want to see it for any lesson, any grade, you would have to go into those PDFs without choosing a student.
Where are they again?
So if you want to do it for the PDF, you would go into curriculum and then choose your grade level and mission. So I'll do grade 2, mission 4, for example. Select go. And then on every mission page, right underneath of that overview, you'll see foundational lesson guidance. And when you open that up, that gives you a PDF for the entire mission broken down by topic with the recommendations that are there. So in addition to the reports, the foundational lesson guidance provides teachers and administrators with the tools needed to take aligned actions to accelerate student growth. The foundational lesson guidance includes research-based lessons that support unfinished learning previous grade levels so that students can achieve the maximum growth possible while staying on their grade level content. The power of Zearn rests in the hands of teachers and administrators as they're leveraging the tools and insights at their disposal. I do want to highlight 2 different resources that you can use in addition to this. First is our Kickstart lessons. So thinking about the circumstances of the past year and the gaps that have been caused in student learning, Zearn also provides guidance in the form of Kickstart lessons. These are 10 to 15 foundational lessons that are strategically placed throughout a grade level scope and sequence that allow students to re-engage with discrete concepts that are critical to their grade level learning. So in order to find Kickstart lessons, you would go into any grade level and choose the overview page. And on the overview for each grade level, to the right-hand side, you'll see acceleration guidance. Once you've clicked into the acceleration guidance, you just scroll down until you find that chart. And these are the Kickstart lessons. So it's saying that before mission 1, grade 3 students could engage in grade 2, mission 6, lessons 5 through 7, in order to give them that background knowledge, help them re-engage with concepts they may have previously learned, or maybe they didn't. So this is filling in the gap before then diving into that grade level content. This is fully optional, so you don't have to use this. It's just an additional tool that you have at your disposal. And then the second thing I want to point out is those bonuses. So we've discussed different ways that we can support students who are experiencing unproductive struggle and need extra support. But what about those students that are moving more quickly through the program and need a little bit of an extension? These enrichment opportunities come in the form of bonuses for Zearn. So students can engage in a bonus for any lesson that they have already completed. These questions are written slightly above grade level to offer a challenge to students who are mastering their current content. An important thing to note here is that bonuses are not going to automatically appear on a student's main feed of activities. Rather, students will need to navigate to their math library and choose all lessons at the top of the page. They can click into a lesson they've completed and then choose that bonus option. Or they can also go into their badges tab. So I'll show you that quickly as well. So from a student view, if they go into math library, toggle over to all lessons, any lesson that has a check mark, will have this bonus option at the bottom for them to click into. Additionally, they can go into badges, and any badge that they've earned, they can click into. This student has already done the bonus, so that's why we see this star here. But if they had not, there would be a button at the bottom here that says beat the bonus. So 2 different pathways they can take to get into those bonus questions. Any questions about Kickstart lessons or bonuses? All right. So as you saw from the previous activity, the reports can provide significant insight into student performance and progress towards instructional goals for all of your learners. So to deepen our understanding of how we apply the information gleaned from reports, we're going to look at a case study with Ms. Johnson. If you were in session 1 with us, you might remember Ms. Johnson. So we're going to start by reading Ms. Johnson's summary so that you understand what she's teaching in her live instruction. Then you'll log into her demo account and access Ms. Johnson's reports. You'll find instructions on how to log in on page 5 of your instructional handout. I will note that sometimes there are 2 demo accounts when you log in. One will say demo class and the other will say Johnson 6th grade core 3. Both of them contain the same data. So if it shows up for 2 options, just either one is fine. You'll get the same answer either way. And as you're exploring her reports, we're going to answer the questions that are on page 6 of our instructional handout. So showing you that quickly, scrolling down, the directions I just gave are listed here at the top. In this yellow box is information for logging into that demo account to review her reports. This summary is what she's teaching in her live instruction.
So can we just look at your report that you're presenting?
Yeah, absolutely. So that first question is asking how many students have met the instructional non-negotiable of 3 to 4 times per week for at least 30 minutes.
Is this for like the current week that they're on?
So we do the current week, and I think what's most important is clicking a column header so we can sort that data to make it easier to count. And then scrolling down, we're just looking for how many students have 3 or more lessons.
That current week, there's, I mean, I can't count them, but
I think there's like 14 or so maybe.
Yeah, there's 13 that are here. If you count them, I know it's probably really small for you guys looking at my screen. The second question is asking, for those students who have not gotten 3 or more lessons, so looking at this top half of the data, what mission are they on and what mission should they be on? Jason just reshared that for you.
Not really sure where they're supposed to be because they're kind of all over the place with their missions, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's tough to tell.
I'm kind of guessing, I don't know.
I would say mission 3, probably like G or F, only because that's where we are right now.
Yeah, so if you're looking here, Brenda, you nailed it, that they are all over the place. So this is a problem, right? That doesn't align to our instructional non-negotiable of keeping our live and digital instruction aligned. So we've got students in mission 2, in 1, and in 3. So what I always do is I sort this column first to kind of see where the majority of the class is. And as we scroll down, we can see about half of the class is on mission 3. It is highly rare, highly unlikely that an entire class will have half the class in a mission above where teacher is teaching. So I think this is a really good indicator that they should all be in mission 3 because that's where the teacher is teaching them. If you want to be more technical about this, looking at that summary, we do have the standard that she's teaching, and that's for OA2. And so when thinking about our curriculum, we can click into grade 4. And if I open the overview PDF, that first page gives me a breakdown of each mission and the standards that are addressed. So looking at this first page, if I find 4OA2, I see it's taught in 1, 3, 5, and 7. And then scrolling up, looking, I know that students are now working in 1 and 3. So 1 is add, subtract, and round, and 3 is multiply and divide. And so again, looking back at that overview, I know she's looking at multiplicative comparisons. So I would know that she's working in mission 3. Our next question is, how many independent digital lessons did Trina Brown complete? So let me head back over to our PACE report. So we have Trina Brown in this first column here.
What kind of lessons did it ask? Independent lessons?
How many independent digital lessons did she complete last week?
So last week. The week we're currently on 2, but the one before that 1.
Yep, absolutely. So looking at last week's data, that's 1. I always think of this as like where the data comes from. So I've always said 2, but you're absolutely right. Last week is 1. And then how many minutes has Roxanne Jacobson been on Zearn this week? So scrolling down, Roxanne is here. Anyone know how we can find that information?
I think we click on the pink number 1.
Yep. So clicking into that cell, we see exactly where she's working and the total amount of time she spent. So 44 minutes for Roxanne. And then our last question here is, what misconception do Jesse Williamson, Jose Perez, and Dejan Rios have in common? And so the PACE report's actually not going to give us that information. Does anyone know which report we'd want to toggle over to?
Maybe the tower.
Anytime we're discussing misconceptions, Tower Alerts is our go-to. And then how might we find where all 3 of these students are having struggle?
They're on the right-hand side where it just tells you if they've worked through the struggle or
so, yeah, each of these is going to tell us whether they've worked through it or still there. But when we're thinking about 3 specific students, I would say the first thing we want to do is to sort our data here to only show those students. And so we can do that on the left-hand side here. And I'm just going to select all 3 of their names. So I've got Jose, Dejan, and Jesse. And so now I'm only seeing alerts that are aligned to those 3 students. And so I see Jesse has grade 4, mission 3, lesson 2. Jose, grade 4, mission 3, lesson 2. Dejan, grade 4, mission 3, lesson 4. A lot of people stop here and they say, well, they don't all have the same misconception, only Jesse and Jose do. What's really important here is to make sure you look through all of those notifications, because if we go down one more row, Dejan's also showing grade 4, mission 3, lesson 2. So all 3 of these students are struggling with dynamic dimensions, which is solving multiplicative comparison word problems by applying the area and perimeter formula. So when we're trying to group students using this type of report, we want to make sure that we're looking at all of the notifications that are here so that we can really group students the best way possible rather than just looking at what's at the top.
Is there a way to see their logins throughout the week? So like when I give it for homework, I try and check the next day and I'll pull it up and see if they completed something. So sometimes I'll say, oh, you know, like Susie, you didn't do Zearn last night, because I'm looking and they didn't. I can see if they completed a lesson when I click on that bar. But I haven't been, so sometimes I'll say, well, I went on, but they didn't go on long enough, or they went on a few minutes. Or.
Yeah, so with last login, you can see the date that they logged in, but there's possibility in that scenario that they would be logging in at school and also at home. So the other option is if you're looking at their current lesson, when you click into that box, you can see the date and time that they've completed different portions of it. You can also see a really comprehensive view of this in those student reports. So if you click into a student report, if you're only researching one student, this might be tedious if you're doing an entire class at once. But if you're looking for a specific student, scrolling down and choosing all activity, this tells you everything they engaged with each day that they've logged in and any alerts that were generated during that time.
It doesn't tell you time though, right? So again, it could
tell you time, yeah. But the PACE report will if you click into that current lesson. Yep.
I knew there was a way and I couldn't remember this year how to find it. Thanks.
Yeah, great question. Other questions that we're having? All right. You guys are awesome, pros here. Using the math generated reports ensures that materials are having their intended impact on student growth. And when they are not, it's going to help provide aligned next steps for acceleration or built-in foundational support. So it's really important that we're taking the time to use these reports to drive that aligned action for successful implementation. You have the power to impact student outcomes by leveraging these built-in tools to accelerate your students' growth. So for the next 10 minutes or so, we are going to do a choose your own activity. So option one is thinking about implementation. So think back to those 4 instructional non-negotiables that we reflected on at the beginning of our session and think, am I meeting all of those instructional non-negotiables? Is there implementation that could be improved? Do you feel like maybe there needs to be some routine and procedures that could be revisited? If that's something that you'd like to focus on and you feel would be impactful for your classroom, you would choose option 1, and in your instructional handout, scrolling down, you'll see there's some guiding questions here to help you work through that process. Option 2 is to really dive into your reports and create some data-driven action steps. So here you would be looking within your reports to find trends within students and then figure out what you want to do next to support them. If that's the path that you want to choose, I encourage you to look at page 7 of your instructional handout. There's an exemplar plan here for Ms. Johnson's group. And there's 2 groups of students with really different contexts. So the first group is not meeting an instructional non-negotiable, while the second group is having an academic misunderstanding. And so it's a great example and a way to start getting some ideas flowing on how you can support your own students. And option 3 is for any instructional coaches or admin to do a similar process, but thinking about our teachers. How can we support teachers further? So diving into the school goals report and the completion tracking and identifying teachers that might be able to share out some best practices, as well as teachers that might want some extra support in making sure implementation is strong. And so again, there's a guiding chart here for you to fill that information in as well. All right, we have about 20 minutes left together. And so for the remaining portion of our time, I'd love to talk more about how we're balancing this in the classroom. Kyle mentioned at the beginning, finding a balance between using Zearn with fidelity, but also making sure we're getting Eureka lessons in and allowing students to have that paper pencil learning time. Kyle, do you want to jump in with anything in addition here?
No, I think that just is a good thing to address. I think that, you know, the issue that I'm sure that we're not remotely the only district that has this challenge, is that, you know, a lot of times the kids that are using Zearn the most are the kids that grasp the content. And, but, you know, even though what Nate had said early on, when I had met with them before, it's like, you know, when you start a new unit, you start everybody at square one, but pretty quick, no matter what module you're on, you may start on one, but, you know, all of a sudden those kids are doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you know, just from your report that you showed earlier, and then you have 1 and 2. So right. I think that the challenge that I see is that, and I'm sure folks will echo it, is that you're like, where's that sweet spot? You know?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that comes to mind in hearing this is that we want to make sure that we're connecting at the unit level and not necessarily by lesson. We know that students are going to move at their own pace because every student learns really differently. And 30 minutes might be more than enough time for one person, but it's not nearly enough time for somebody else. So we want to keep that in mind as we're looking at our data. And if we're starting students on the first lesson of the unit that we're teaching, we can allow them to work at their own pace. But then when we get to a new unit, we're resetting all students to be on that first lesson of that new unit with us. And so some students may not work through every single lesson in Zearn, and that's okay because they're still receiving that instruction in their live instruction. And it may come up as a bookmark for them later if that really is a gap in learning that they needed to have that double dose from. But if we're resetting at the beginning of every module or mission that we're teaching, that's going to help with that alignment a little bit. And we just want to keep an eye on those students that do work a little bit slower. So that's my first thought that comes to mind. I would love to hear from you guys. How are you currently using it with Eureka? What is kind of your schedule looking like? How are we getting those minutes in?
Well, in second grade, we have an intervention block, a 30-minute intervention block. So we were in second grade at my school doing primarily having kids spend a portion, maybe 3 days a week, would be on Zearn while we pulled students based on like exit tickets from Eureka or things that we knew they were having trouble on. So it gave us the opportunity to have them working independently on something pretty self-sufficient while we could pull small groups. But like I said, we just, we have like 60-something% of our students are significantly below in reading. So we just shifted to a huge reading intervention for about 12 weeks. So we lost that intervention time. So now that's where I'm really struggling. I only have about an hour to teach math now. So it doesn't really, the Eureka lessons take, 75 minutes roughly. So it's hard now. So I'm now pulling away from paper homework temporarily to try and get them on a good flow of doing it for homework. And we're trying to use, when they come in the morning, they have like about 15 minutes during homeroom that if they're efficient and they get buckled down right away, they can do that. But right now it's a struggle. Some kids like to go on, so they go on at home, or, I communicate to families a couple times a week and I'll send them a little dojo message like, John's on lesson 2, he should be on lesson 8. We have a weekly goal in our classes and we write it on the homework agenda. So by the end of the week, we would like you to be at lesson 9. We always set it a little bit lofty so that if they don't quite make it, they're still in the window, but it's hard to fit it all in.
Yeah, so I have a couple things, and there's not one specific recommendation from Zearn. I can share Zearn's recommended schedule. This is more for our core instruction users, and so that it's based off of having a 75-minute math block. So this might not work for you, but I'll share it because it does provide kind of a visual of how you might want to break that time down. When I taught Zearn, I only had a 60-minute math block, and I didn't have any additional intervention time to dedicate to it. And so the way I did it personally is we split our math block into 2 30-minute rotations. We taught Engage New York, which is very similar to Eureka. And during that 30 minutes, I would just have to prioritize what in that lesson needed to be taught. So I would break it down and do a mini lesson that was guided together, and then allow students maybe 1 or 2 practice problems where I was able to engage with those manipulatives with them, walk around, check their work, give them feedback. And then for the other 30 minutes, they would go on Zearn. And so that worked for us. It was a really tight schedule. It took a lot of time setting up routines and procedures in the beginning of the year. I taught first grade, so we know they're not the most savvy on tech equipment when they're coming in. So it did take some time to get into that, but it did work for us. So that's something that you could consider. I also encourage teachers to just be really creative. I know that time is always a problem, and like 5 minutes is so precious in the classroom. I totally understand that. So thinking of ways that we can creatively do that. So maybe it is like when they're coming in for morning meeting, maybe it's transitioning from lunch or recess into their next learning block. They get a few minutes to log on, even if it's 5-10 minutes. Early finisher activities. It could, if you have the ability to have devices in your classroom all the time, it could be an early finisher activity. Those are just some ideas I've heard and I've personally used, but I think it really looks a little bit different for every classroom. And then my other question is, do you guys provide any incentives around student completion of Zearn lessons?
It'd be great to hear what other folks do for like dangling that carrot, you know, because I think really like 5th grade, when it gets decimal heavy and those get dry as a desert. You know, yeah, like how do you dangle the carrot, you know?
Yeah, I've seen this done and heard several teachers have really amazing ideas. When I taught, I had a chart at the front of my room. And again, I did this with first graders, so this is going to work for your younger kids. And it was like a clip chart that started with 0 at the bottom and 5 at the top. And our goal at my school was 5 lessons a week, which is a lot. You only have to get 3 to 4. But every time a student completed a lesson, they would immediately go up and move that clip. So it was like immediate gratification for them. And students were so motivated to try and like be the first one to the top or to want to get on. We also did Zearn captains. So someone who was meeting that goal for several weeks in a row would get to be the Zearn captain. And so if they finished all of their lessons early in the week, their job was then to help the other students with tech during that time. So I wouldn't have to be distracted from the small group I was working with. They would sit one-on-one with the student and reteach what they had learned to that student who might have been struggling or moving more slowly. It's a great way for them to create transferable skills there. Things like that. I also heard from a teacher recently in a session that they did a Big Z award. And that was, I think she was a 4th or 5th grade teacher. And her Big Z award was around Zearn, but it could have been anything she decided that week. So sometimes it was the most improved. Sometimes it was the most minutes on Zearn. Sometimes it was how many lessons they had completed. So whatever she felt needed to be celebrated so that all students had an opportunity to earn that reward. I thought that was really awesome. So those are just a few that I've heard.
Thank you. Brenda, I can get everybody little sailor hats and they can be little Zearn captains in your room.
There we go. That's right up your alley. We use like Class Dojo. So I do like dojo points. So as I have the pace report up and I'm looking at it, I'll say like, oh, you know, Susie did homework last night, or Colton's on lesson 9 already. And I'll like give dojo points out and things like that. Or we have these little tickets, Quiet tickets. I'll use those sometimes, but
okay.
It works for the kids that it works for. And the other kids who like forget by the time they get home, even though it's on their homework agenda or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the struggle.
I get that. And there's always a few kids that it's trying to find what is going to engage them and not what's going to motivate them. Other questions or thoughts you're having? I want to make sure that you're leaving today feeling like this was really useful for you.
I mean, in terms of like the Zearn as like a homework piece, have you seen it work, not work?
I hear some people use it. I think the biggest challenge is knowing whether your students have a device and internet connection at home or not. Mm-hmm. I don't have any data that shows how effective that is because we don't say like that's how you have to use it, you know. I have heard several teachers though do. They say if it doesn't get completed by the end of the week, then it becomes a homework assignment. Or for students they know that just need a little bit of additional time, just communicating with those families like, hey, they have this much more of their lessons to do. Can you have them log in for 10, 15 minutes each night so that they can get that additional learning time? I think it just depends on the student. I don't have any statistics to show you on success rate, but I know that there are teachers that are using it that way.
Is there a chance you could do you have a photo of that chart that you used to use?
I do have a photo. So I don't know that I have a photo, but I have the actual PDF. I can send that over to Nate to send to you guys with the recording as well.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And like any other tidbits, like in terms of like if there are templates that folks have shared with you, I mean, I think the bigger the library that we can get.
Yeah, I will point out on our Zearn school account resources, if you dive into some of the stuff there are like sample anchor charts and things that you can use. I know for my first graders, I had an anchor chart at the front of the room, which I also have as a PDF I can send, that told them exactly how to log on because they needed that extra support in knowing the procedure on the iPad. But it's scrolling down, yeah, there's like anchor charts here. There's different lesson trackers. Different certificates you can use to celebrate progress along the way. And there's several ideas in each of these. So if you want to explore that as well, those are all really helpful.
No, super. Thank you.
Yeah. I also had my students, they had a Zearn folder. So they knew at Zearn time that Zearn folder came out. It had their login and like on a label on the front of it. And I had a lesson tracker in there for them. It was just the one that Zearn uses, which you can find on those curriculum pages if you click into student notes. And we would go through I had a co-teacher then, and we would sign off if they got it. And that was really motivating for some students as well. And then they had it up close to them as well. So aside from moving it at the front of the room, they also could see their progress individually. So this is just what it looks like. We would write down the numbers of the lessons they needed to do. And so they could check them off as they went.
Mm-hmm.
That could be cool to shrink down and laminate and put on their desk so teachers can reuse it week after week too.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
If we had a working lamination machine.
And toner.
And toner. And yeah, ink. The new wave problems.
No one's been in the building for so long, you know? Things have run out, got to replenish. All right. As we are coming to a close here, are there any additional questions before I close out with you?
Nope, thank you.
All right. So would love to hear some takeaways here. If you just have a moment, again, you can do this verbally, or if you're more comfortable putting it into the chat, that's fine as well. Something that was really impactful about today's session, something that you plan to leverage to use in your classroom, or something that you're looking to know more about.
I'm going to try those bonus lessons for the kids who always finish, because those are always the kids that I feel bad. I have them help other kids, but so I like that. And I like the Kickstart lesson too. That might be like a good way to get them ready for the next.
Yeah, such a nice way to ease them into that new content.
I mean, I think as an administrator, slightly embarrassed to say I don't give this the time it needs. And I think you just showed me a few things that can make it easy for me to check on. A couple of getting into the current year's data. I can't wait till I can figure that out, because Clever obviously isn't working for me or something. So, but I was able to look around even in last year's data and stuff like that and take a look.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate you showing us the things that teachers probably already know. So thank you.
Absolutely. And Buzz, as an administrator, you have access to some really awesome reports that your teachers, so definitely utilize those.
I could see that. pretty quick, pretty easy to access. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I know that you guys have had a long day and it's been full of many meetings and kids. So I appreciate you taking time to learn more about Zearn with me.